Good afternoon, everyone. આજે Physicians webinar in collaboration with Additional Director Medical Education, Medical Services and SIHFW વડોદરા નું આ સેકન્ડ સિરીઝનું લાસ્ટ સેશન છે. આપણે 3 દિવસ ફિઝિશિયન્સ વેબિનાર અરેન્જ કરી અને અલગ અલગ વિષયો પર એપિડેમિયોલોજી, મેનેજમેન્ટ ઓફ COVID-19, મેનેજમેન્ટ ઓફ સિવિયર કેસીસ, સેપ્ટિક શોક અને વેન્ટિલેશન સ્ટ્રેટેજી, આ તમામ મુદ્દાઓ પર અલગ અલગ તજજ્ઞો દ્વારા એ વાત કરેલી છે. વેબિનાર આયોજન કરી અને આજે ફિઝિશિયન્સ વેબિનારમાં આપણી વચ્ચે ઉપસ્થિત છે ડૉક્ટર આરતીબેન ત્રિવેદી. આરતીબેન ત્રિવેદી એડિશનલ પ્રોફેસર ડિપાર્ટમેન્ટ ઓફ મેડિસિન, પીડીયુ મેડિકલ કોલેજ રાજકોટથી છે. મેડમ આપને મેનેજમેન્ટ ઓફ એરોઝોલ જનરેટિંગ પ્રોસિજર વિશે માહિતી આપશે. આ વેબિનાર દરમિયાન પાર્ટિસિપન્ટને વિનંતી છે કે પોતાનો ઓડિયો, માઇક્રોફોન જે છે એ મ્યુટ મોડ પર રાખે. લગભગ 80 થી વધુ પાર્ટિસિપન્ટ જોઈન થઈ ગયા છે, તો વધુ સમય ન લેતા હું ડૉક્ટર આરતીબેન ત્રિવેદીને વિનંતી કરીશ કે આપણા પાર્ટિસિપન્ટને મેનેજમેન્ટ ઓફ એરોઝોલ જનરેટિંગ પ્રોસિજર્સ વિશે માહિતી આપે. ઓવર ટુ યુ મેમ.
ઉનાળાની બળબડતી બપોરે રસ રોટલી ખાઈને પછી બપોરે અહીંયા ભણવા બેસવા માટે shows your commitment.
મેમ તમારો અવાજ થોડો ધીમો આવે છે.
Am I audible now?
Yes ma'am, now it's clear.
હું કન્ટેન્ટ શેર કરી લઉં.
હા મેમ.
Okay, am I audible now?
Yes ma'am.
Good afternoon to everyone. Friends, we are facing a very rare kind of calamity on this world. આપણે આપણી ભાષામાં કહીએ તો ન ભૂતો and hopefully ન ભવિષ્યત. This type of a pandemic has struck us. This calamity is beyond imagination for everyone. All we can do, it is a completely new pathogen with new mutations and causing new disease. So everything put together, we are facing an enemy in dark. We are trying our best. All of us are trying at our own level to just go ahead and help people come out of this calamity. So, of course, આપણી સંસ્કૃતિ પ્રમાણે ભગવાનનું નામ લઈ વિઘ્નહર્તાને પ્રાર્થના કરી અને આગળ. Today's topic is management of aerosol generating medical procedures. Aerosol generating medical procedures are those things that we do daily. Specialists do at their level, physicians do at their level, and medical officers also have certain aerosol generating procedures, which probably they might know the name of, but એ આ કેટેગરીમાં. તો એને આપણે કેવી રીતે સારી રીતે મેનેજમેન્ટ કરી આપણે પોતાની જાત બચાવી શકીએ અને આપણા હેલ્થકેર વર્કર્સને પણ સેફ રાખી શકીએ. So the plan for the next half an hour or so today is we will just clarify our definition of the term aerosol generating. We will look through the modes of transmission of infection during conducting these AGMPs, in short, the various risk stratification for various AGMPs, and then we will take an overview of management principles of the
મેડમ નો અવાજ ધીમો છે.
in which I have included the environmental controls we should be looking at, the human resource management, and precautions to be taken by our as well as the procedural. In the procedural precautions, it is not possible that we take in detail all the procedures in such a short time. So we will go accordingly. And finally, we'll summarize before ending the session. So friends, by definition, aerosol generating medical procedures, AGMPs as they are called, they are any procedures carried out on a patient that induce the production of aerosols, usually in a high concentration, as a result of manipulation of the air. This results in a tendency to infect the person who is carrying out the procedure. The healthcare worker, doctor, who is actually doing the procedure is likely to be infected, and because they are in high concentration, they are more likely to be infected than other doctors who are attending the wards. That is why AGMPs increase the risk to the healthcare worker. First, they either increase the opportunistic airborne transmission of pathogens which are not
વિડિયો
normally
બરાબર ચાલે છે.
through, for example, SARS or influenza. And they also
તો
increase
કેવું
the
છે
risk of
વિડિયો ઓફ કરવા માટે?
infection known to spread by this route. For
વિડિયો ઓફ
example,
કરો તો નેટ
tuberculosis. The transmission of infections which occurs by the aerosol produced during the AGMPs can be broadly divided into three main categories. Aerosols can be produced in the form of droplets, which are large particles. The large particles don't travel very far, but if the procedure is such that it is generated with a force, then they can directly land onto the mucosal surfaces, the nose, the mouth of the healthcare worker, and they can directly infect the healthcare worker. The smaller particles in form of aerosols can be remaining airborne in the air surrounding the patient and the healthcare worker for a very long time.
જો
And they also being suspended in the air
attendance sheet જે બનાવે ને એને સંખ્યા
in a
મળી
position to infect the healthcare worker
report
who
update
come in
કરતા
contact with
manager
the air during the procedure or immediately after the procedure. That includes the cleaning staff also.
અને આ બધું વ્યવસ્થિત
Third way in which these
વિડિયો
aerosols
અપલોડ નું
can
ગીતાબેન
infect
કરશે રેગ્યુલર.
the healthcare
તો નોર્મલી અમે ડાઉનલોડ કરી
when the aerosols land on the
અહીંયાથી લેવું પડશે ને હવે તો
surrounding the patient, the cot,
મેં કર્યું
the patient's cot, railing, the ventilator,
પહેલે
the
ખાલી
equipments
scheduling છે
used for the procedure.
તો એને વિડિયો
All these can
આપી
be
દો
contaminated by the aerosol,
બરાબર ને એને
and then
કહી
if they are touched by the healthcare
એનો
personnel
શેડ્યુલ કરી
and enough precautions are not taken,
આટલી આટલી
then by touching the equipment followed by touching their own mouth or
કેટલી
nose,
છે કેટલી
healthcare
નથી કઈ બાકી રહી ગઈ ને
ના
બધું.
ખ્યાલ
of
આવે
course, the relative contribution of these routes will vary with the agent that we are dealing
તો
with.
પછી હેમાંગીની રહી ગઈ અને ગીતાબેને રહી ગઈ
Meningococcal meningitis, rubella, etc. And of course, our high and
હા,
mighty
problem.
can be spread
અને
by droplets.
બોલાશે બોલાશે
The smaller particles, airborne infection, which remain suspended in the air, have tuberculosis, measles, varicella, smallpox,
પેલું શેડ્યુલ કરી દેજો એના માટે જ હશે ફાર્માસિસ્ટ
And those infections that are spread by indirectly
માટે જ હશે
means contamination of equipment or in surfaces surrounding the patient are RSV and of course COVID.
આના પર વોચ રાખજો
This is a picture which will show you the basic reproduction number, a measure of how many people each one sick person can infect
we'll move on to
during a procedure or during the infectivity period. So for COVID-19, it is in the middle row on the extreme left. We are at 2.5 on the scale for COVID-19, which goes up to 16 in measles, and it was only 0.8 in MERS. The rest of the serious illnesses are also in between. So how is COVID-19 transmitted? When an infected person who is not wearing talks or maybe breathes or even coughs or sneezes, the secretions from the throat and mouth are thrown out with force. The larger droplets, they tend to fall down on the ground up to 1 to 2 meters. The smaller droplets can spread as an aerosol up to 6 meters, and depending on the vital capacity of the lung of the patient and the tendency for a forceful exhalation or coughing or sneezing, depending on that force, we still have to determine how far COVID-19 droplets can go. They have been reported up to 6 meters till. For Ebola, it was the large droplets which were falling within 1 meter. For measles, they have gone up to 2 meters. But for Ebola, friends, we are still not sure how far they can fall. So moving on to the various procedures and where do they stand? Where does each procedure fall into the categorization as far as the risk of the high-risk aerosol generating procedures would be enlisted as endotracheal intubation as well as extubation, which is being done in most of the very regularly. Open suctioning of the respiratory tract, which is usually done by nurses or other healthcare workers. Manual bag mask ventilation, which is a part of the ventilation support that specialized procedures like bronchoscopy, bronchoalveolar lavage, tracheostomy, which may be open or percutaneous, laryngoscopy, all these specialized procedures which are done usually by specialists fall under the high risk category. Simple NIV that we use in our emergency wards, the non-invasive positive pressure ventilation and CPAP falls under the high risk category. Autopsy of the lung tissue is also falling under high risk category, but mind you, only for the lung tissue. Nasopharyngeal washing and scoping also fall under the high risk category. There is a caveat that the collection of nasopharyngeal swabs and aspirates are not considered high risk. I repeat, collection of nasopharyngeal swabs and aspirates as a diagnostic test for COVID patients, they are not falling under high risk category. Some dental procedures, which include high-speed drilling, or I would say majority dental procedures will also fall under the high risk. Any procedures which induce sputum all fall under the high risk category. So you must have noticed, my friends, that many of these procedures we are already performing for our patients without knowing that we are doing a high risk procedure.
જગદીશભાઈ અને મેડમ ત્રણેયને સાથે બોલાવ્યા
The high risk AGMPs usually are of two types. Either we are doing manually or they are mechanical. So induced aerosol generation occurs through a manual intubation, wherein the blow comes more towards the healthcare worker, while in mechanical aerosol generation, which is done with the help of machine, the usual flow is vertical. So it is like ventilation and suction. So it does not come directly to the healthcare. Now, which are the moderate risk AGM? Routine patient care in ventilated patients. This occurs in all wards, like turning the patient, proning the patient, caring for an agitated or restless patient. These are the patients who will forcefully be throwing their secretions towards the health. So they fall under the moderate AGM. Mind you, oral care in itself is not considered an AGMP, but as coughing and gagging can occur in awake patients or intubated. The use of an N95 respirator is always a must in any healthcare worker who is attending for oral care. High flow nasal cannula oxygenation, HFNC oxygenation, a very useful tool nowadays. Is also under moderate, but oxygen delivered via nasal prongs and or non-rebreathing masks are not considered under moderate risk AGM, regardless of whatever. This is an important thing. Cardiopulmonary resuscitation done for any patient, whether positive or not yet tested, falls under moderate risk AGM. This is vis-a-vis COVID-19. Tracheostomy care, especially if it requires deep CPAP, will fall under nasogastric tube insertion is also a moderate risk AGM itself, except if it is done in children under 1 year. Transesophageal bronchocardiogram, which is again category, as well as administration of nebulized medication, not MDIs, just nebulizer, use of nebulizer, falls under moderate risk of AGM. What falls under low risk procedures, which are considered as low risk AGM? Obtaining diagnostic nose, nasopharyngeal or throat swab falls under low risk. Administration of pressurized humidified oxygen and administration of medication via MDI. Please excuse the typo here. It's not nebulizer. These are under low risk category. I hope the various procedures that we perform regularly and the risk, the stratification which they are, the risk stratification of each procedure is clear. So most commonly performed AGM, practically every hospital, are intubation, extubation, manual ventilation, open suctioning, cardiopulmonary resuscitation, bronchoscopy, non-invasive ventilation, induction of sputum, and acquiring diagnostic swabs. All these procedures are more or less done that we are. So now we can move to the principles of infection prevention and email ID during various AGMs. The standard precautions which are used for any and every procedure and which have to be carried as guided by WHO are hand hygiene, the use of appropriate personal protective equipment, injection safety practices, sterilization of patient care equipment, and the standard disposal of biomedical as per. So, when we are going for any aerosol generation, what else do we need over and above the standard? That we will have to see. So the strategies to reduce risk during the various AGM. First and foremost, friends, try to avoid unnecessary procedures. All these aerosol generating procedures, no matter how much care you take for yourself and your family, they have a very high potential of causing infection. So try and avoid unnecessary AGMPs. Analyze the risk-benefit ratio of each procedure that you are about to perform and go ahead with it only and only if the benefit very strongly outweighs the risk. Consider other available alternatives for the procedure. Is there any other medication available which might help in not performing the procedure or which might do the work of the procedure itself? So try and answer all these questions before finalizing the procedure in an AGM. But if the procedure is inevitable, anticipate the procedure, plan ahead for the procedure. Because if you are doing a planned procedure, you are prepared for eventualities and you have prepared well with all the equipment and manpower, and then you are less likely to create complications or commit any errors. So how will you plan? Appropriate sedation may be used in patients depending on the procedure so that we can minimize the excessive, forceful or prolonged cuffing spells during the procedure. Muscle relaxants or paralytics may be used in indicated specialized procedures. Pre-oxygenation or hyperoxygenation just before the procedure. Try and pre-oxygenate the patient to a higher level so that during the procedure, when the oxygen saturation falls, panic is not required. Now, where do you perform such aerosol generating procedures? The general dictum that we use is a negative pressure room. What do you mean by negative pressure? The scientific term is AIIR, airborne infection isolation room. But AGMPs do not always require AIIR. But preferably a single room should be demarcated in consultation with the authority, which is away from the other high-risk patients, wherein you can perform the procedure. The doors of this room should be kept closed at all
like
times.
calligraphy
And in case you
complicated.
you should open and close the door very slowly and swiftly so as to prevent the waves of air going out or coming in. Moving in and out of this specialized room should also be minimized for only essential activities while we are performing and immediately after. If a single room is not available in our setup, it can be done in the ward also, but try and maintain a physical separation from other patients as much as possible. We can draw curtains and segregate the area. We have to remove any shared equipment, supplies or linens from the immediate vicinity of the patient where we are going to perform the aerosol generating procedure so as to lessen the chances of contamination. So much for the environmental control. So now we talk for precautions for the health. All the healthcare workers, including the person who conduct the procedure, should perform a point of care risk assessment prior to the AGM for selecting appropriate PPE and environmental. We have to minimize the procedure time by engaging senior staff and experts to do the procedure, who are doing it day in, day out, so that the speed increases. Minimize required number of staff or healthcare workers. If only one servant is required, please don't insist for two. But maybe we can keep one more expert wearing the whole PPE if the procedure is expected to be long. Ensure appropriate PPE is worn by all staff present. All individuals in the room have to be wearing at least a N95 respirator. The healthcare workers who are going near the patient and helping in the procedure should also wear an eye or face protection, full gown and gloves, and anyone else who is coming within 2 meters distance of the procedural patient should wear an eye or face protection. What are the
આવ્યો
cautions or care that we have to take?
અનિશન મોકલો ને અહીંયા.
Remove the PPE, mask, eye, face, or protection only after leaving. The N95 respirator should be removed by holding the straps behind the ears, and we are not to touch the outer surface of the N95 respirator under any circumstances. The respirator, the mask, is the PPE, that component of PPE which is maximum contaminant. So it is imperative to remember that neither you nor any of your staff is touching the respirator from the outer surface. So all the PPE components have to be disposed appropriately in the bins. This is one example of detailed description of how to prepare a patient. This is for intubation. How you pre-oxygenate the patient. What is the pre-treatment plan? During intubation, what are the important things that we take care of? There are certain things which we have regularly, like a video-assisted laryngoscopy, which is best for patients like COVID-19. Or at least you can have a transparent sheet cover the patient, let your hands go within and work so that the blast from the patient, aerosol blast, doesn't come directly. And the post-intubation. This particular detail is for the intubation. Such type of details are available for all procedures on the neck. So whenever we are performing the procedure, I request you all plan the procedure, take some time out and read about the details of the procedure so that we don't miss this in helping keep ourselves and our understaffed safe. So to summarize, we will try to avoid, postpone, or consider an alternative for AGMPs if possible. But if they are inevitable, we'll plan the procedure meticulously, prepare all the equipment that we require, keep experts ready, minimize the healthcare workers available inside the room. We will try to control the environment as much as possible. So negative pressure room or a single room, or if you are doing in the ward, a separate area at least. Full PPE for all the people who are attending the procedure. Will take minimum time to complete the procedure as fast as possible. And of course, at the end of the procedure, we will not, cannot overlook the biomedical waste management. Thank you very much, friends.
Thank you very much, madam, for a wonderful presentation. Now we will move on to question answer session. Participants can write their question in Q&A section. Q&A section you will find out in a 3-dotted icon that is there in your screen. 3 dots icon. Inside that you will find out Q&A option. So you can write your question in Q&A. We will be answering to the question. Participant ने जो कोई सवाल पूछવો હોય તો Q&A ઓપ્શન માં લખી શકે છે. Q&A તમારી સ્ક્રીનની ઉપર 3 ડોટ વાળું જે આઇકોન છે એની અંદર Q&A ઓપ્શન તમને જોવા મળશે. સવાલ પૂછતી વખતે પાર્ટિસિપન્ટ ને વિનંતી છે કે ઓલ પેનલિસ્ટ સિલેક્ટ કરવું. સવાલ તમારો ઓલ પેનલિસ્ટ સિલેક્ટ કરવું જેથી સવાલ દરેક ને વિઝિબલ થઈ શકે. Everybody can see your question.
and this is a very procedural thing.
So the first question is, after paralyzing patient at time of intubation, there will be no risk. Dr. Bharat Ravalia.
Dr. Bharat, actually, the risk is more if the patient is conscious because there is fight inside of the patient. There is a forceful exhalation. But even if the patient doesn't forcefully exhale, the production of aerosol is always going to be there whenever you are doing any procedure in the respiratory tract. So no risk is not correct. Minimal risk or lessened risk is the correct.
So, Dr. Ketan Dhodakia, is intubation may helpful?
If you mean the by intubation bay, if you mean the box, the transparent box that we are using, some centers are using, yes, it is of course useful because it will keep the aerosol contained within. But I don't know how many centers it will be available.
Okay. So, if there are any more questions, we can take it. If you find difficulty in writing question answer in Q&A, you can also write in chat box. We will take that also. Dr. Bharat Ravalia is again asking, both face shield and goggles required during intubation.
The PPE that is advised has both of them, but we always don't have everything. So whenever available, it is best as like we wear our mask as well as the face shield on the mask. Try to give double protection. Similarly, if there is a goggles available and on top of that, if you have a shield which you can wear comfortably, which does not hinder your vision because procedures need clear vision, then you can wear both.
Next question is from Dr. Rajesh Gopal sir. Sir is additional project director to GSEX Ahmedabad. He is congratulating Dr. Aarti madam for an excellent presentation. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Next question is from Dr. Rajesh Gopal sir. Dr. Rajesh Gopal sir is additional project director to GSEX Ahmedabad. He is congratulating Dr. Aarti madam for an excellent presentation and asking, will N95 sufficient for all AGPs, medical and surgical, or do we feel the need of FFP2, FFP3 for some errors?
Good afternoon, sir. Thank you for the compliment. N95 usually takes care of majority of our infective organisms, but in specialist procedures, if you have a mask which has a higher like N99 or N100 also, or FP, please go for it.
News bulletin number 16, Indian Red Cross Society ભાવનગર જિલ્લા શાખાની કોરોના મહામારી રાહત પ્રવૃત્તિઓ તારીખ 29/4/2020 નું ન્યૂઝ બુલેટિન નંબર 16 આપને રોજ થઈ રહેલી કામગીરીનો અહેવાલ આપી રહ્યા છીએ. Dr. Gopal sir is sharing. Okay. Dr. Rajendra, how to disinfect room or place after procedures?
There are specific protocols as per the procedure. Actually, the bacteria or virus which are spread as aerosol in the room will clear off depending on the ventilation of the room. So, if there is a complete air change uh, machine available, then it has its own specifications. How much time the air change occurs. But in a routine room, approximately 3 hours is the time wherein the complete air change or the aerosol can be called safely dissolved or diluted enough not to infect more. The various rooms where we do the procedures have different types of ventilation. So in operation theaters, it will be different. In negative pressure rooms, it will be different. And in other single rooms which have been created for procedures, it will be
For any more questions, if you have, you can write in Q&A section. Related to aerosol generating procedures.
how to disinfect. Maybe wiping just with the hypochlorite or sterilium as we do for all inanimate objects, the surfaces, the cot rails, the trolleys, have to wipe clean the handles, the doorknobs, everything. The room air, as I said, clears off, and the regular fumigation which we use for disinfecting the rooms and wards. It's the same thing we use for procedure.
So I think, ma'am, no more questions are coming. So we may conclude this session. SHFW is very much thankful to you, ma'am, for sparing time for this webinar. Thank you very much, ma'am.
Thank you so much for this.
Okay. Ma'am, may we take one more question? Is there from Yogi Pandya?
Yeah, sure.
Is the sodium hypochlorite spray effective as like alcohol?
It has been shown to be increased, but then the concentrations which are used and the uh, machine throws it with a certain force, creating a mist. So you need specialized machines for effective spraying with sodium hypochlorite.
Okay. So thank you very much, madam. We will conclude this session. We are thankful to Dr. Aarti Trivedi ma'am, and we are also thankful to our participants who has attended this webinar and actively participated in this webinar. Thank you very much.